expected points, clean sheet odds, and who is the best captain. This video has got all of the information you need to know ahead of game week 2. Now, before we get going, I just wanted to say that all of the expected points data you see here is courtesy of Fantasy Football Hub. You can sign up to Fantasy Football Hub, getting 50% off using my link in the description below. And another offer, if you don't win your mini league this year and you're using Fantasy Football Hub, they'll give you your money back if you can prove it to them. So sign up Fantasy Football Hub to see this expected points data all season for yourself using the link. We've got goalkeepers up first then. David Raya, who I'm just watching the Man United Arsenal game over here while I record this. He's got a clean sheet so far against Man United, made an awesome save against Cunha. He's got Leeds at home as his fixture in game week 2. Suggests he looks like a pretty good goalkeeper in general for FPL, and he is the top for expected points. Petrovic, who doesn't have Bournemouth at home, he's got Wolves at home, forgive that. 4 expected points for him. Wolves, they didn't look very good. I know they're playing Man City, but they looked really poor against Man City. Bournemouth, I guess, defensively were questionable too. They just don't have the personnel at the moment. I think Iraola, the manager, was pointing that out before the game even started. They're going to need some time to get some personnel in, but, Wolves didn't look great at all. Dubravka's got Sunderland. I wasn't too impressed with Burnley, to be honest, in their game against Tottenham. And I've got to be honest, I'm not massive on Dubravka as a goalkeeper either. I don't think he's actually all that good. Pickford, he's got Brighton. Pickford's always going to be there or thereabouts, I think, in terms of top goalkeepers for expected points. He's a good goalkeeper who makes a lot of saves. Everton can be fairly solid defensively on their day as well. Dean Henderson, Forest away. Going into the season, we were worried about how many goals Nottingham Forest would score. They just put 3 past Brentford. Their new signing in Doy and Chris Wood with a brace. Not sure if Crystal Palace can keep a clean sheet, particularly away from home. And then Leno's got Man United, who are currently 1-0 down against Arsenal, but they look really dangerous. The combination of Cunha and Mbumo and Mount's been really dangerous in that game as well. I'd wonder if they can keep a clean sheet in that game, basically. For the next 5 weeks, so what I want to show here is a view of obviously game week 2 in isolation, but also the next 5. Interestingly, Alisson, according to Fantasy Football Hub, is the top goalkeeper for expected points. They've got tough fixtures coming up against Newcastle and Arsenal, and after that, they do get a little bit better. Raya's up there. He's always going to be up there. Sanchez is 3rd. Obviously, Chelsea. A lot of people got Sanchez in their team already. He's 25% owned in the game. And yeah, Chelsea got some decent fixtures. Pickford, he's probably, if I were to place a bet, he's probably going to finish as the top point-scoring goalkeeper this season. But at 5.5 million, I don't necessarily think he's worth the money, but he is up there. Martinez, who should be back for Villa in game week 2, having served his suspension, although it doesn't look like he's going to be sold by Villa. It's a bit of an interesting situation with their goalkeeper. And Sells, I do like Sells as a pick. I think both he and Sanchez are probably 2 of my favourite goalkeeper picks in the game as well. I think Nottingham Forest look good defensively, obviously, in their game against Brentford, even though they conceded, but I still think they look fairly solid. They've got some decent fixtures as well. Defenders then, and I've got a couple views here. I'm going to show you all of defenders and then some cheap ones as well, because this list is kind of dominated by some of the premium assets. So we've got Gabriel and Saliba as the top 2. They've got Leeds, obviously a good fixture. You'd imagine Arsenal's clean sheet odds in that one are pretty high. Gabriel, out of the 2, definitely offers the most goal threat, so it makes sense for him to be top. And at the same price, I just don't see any reason why you'd pick Saliba over Gabriel. You could have them both, but honestly, I'm having Gabriel over Saliba all day long. Munoz of Crystal Palace. You'd imagine, well, they've just kept a clean sheet against Chelsea, first of all. You'd imagine, the guy's going to be an attacking threat this season as he has been previously. Doesn't do too badly for DEFCON either. Nottingham Forest at home for him. And Richards, who also doesn't do too badly for DEFCON. I think that's a good fixture. Nori, who you'd think would be the opposite. Someone ridiculously attacking, but not so good for DEFCON. He achieved DEFCON against Wolves. Tottenham at home is his fixture. I think with Guardiola out, don't know for how long, he might be back next week, I guess. But I think Nori might well be a solid, almost reliable pick to keep starting at left back for Man City. I think Tottenham, they are a bit of a bogey team for Man City, so I guess the jury's out on whether Tottenham score in that one. Richarlison had a really good game in that, by the way, against Burnley. And then Mark Gahey. It's an interesting one about the Palace defence, isn't it? Because I would say Gahey is so important to that Palace defence. He's a real leader in the team, and I'd be a little bit concerned as to how they perform if he were to leave. He's being professional in obviously playing for Crystal Palace, unlike some players in the Premier League that are due a move. But I do think with what his asking price is, I'd be amazed if he's a Crystal Palace player at the end of this summer. I think what the price is like 30, 35 million for a player of his, an English player of his quality. I'd be really surprised. I think he probably goes to Liverpool, especially considering the performance that Konate had against Bournemouth. So I showed the expensive ones, but I thought it would also be worth looking at some cheap defenders, although this week it's not too different from what you've just seen. Richards and Gahey are up here, of course. We've just looked at them. Lacroix is up there as well, 5 million. There are three, obviously, the three centre-backs that Palace usually play, Chris Richards, Mark Gahey and Lacroix. Lacroix last season was the leader for DEFCON, so he's been priced at 5 million. But in terms of expected points for Game Week 2 this season, Richards is number one. Can you really bring yourself to pick Michael Keane? I'll leave it there. Senesi and Diakite for Bournemouth are up there as well. I think these two will establish some sort of centre-back pairing. It's just a question of, do Bournemouth bring in another defender? Because before the days of Howson and Zabarnyi, it was only Senesi's injury that opened the door for Howson to get in the team. Senesi was the first choice Bournemouth centre-back before that. So, you know, it wouldn't surprise me if that's a team that Iraola settles on. Don't mind the both of them. And I do think Bournemouth will turn things around. Like I said, Truffert, who I'd actually put above both of these. I think that's how you pronounce it. Truffert, it's spelt, but he's French, so I'm giving it a French pronunciation. I would say in that Liverpool game, he looked like he'd been at Bournemouth and in the Premier League for like 5 years. He looked so seasoned and just comfortable. I think they're going to form a good partnership and Bournemouth are going to be back to their best. In terms of defenders for the next 5 weeks, though, it's a slightly different view. So we got Milenkovic as the number one. I think combination of Nottingham Forest being pretty good defensively, having good fixtures, Milenkovic being such a threat from set pieces that he is, and also someone who does well for DEFCON. He's just got loads of routes to points. Aït-Nouri has proven he can keep clean sheets. We know at this time at Wolves he can be really attacking and get attacking returns. And his first game at Man City got DEFCON, so I think he could be a really good option. Cucurella too, kept a clean sheet against Crystal Palace. Looked quite dangerous, I'd say, in that game. I'd be a little bit concerned about the Liverpool defence. You know, I just said that. If they sign Gahey, probably less so, but I'm not sure I'd be picking Virgil van Dijk at the moment. Munoz, I think, would be a good option. The Palace fixtures get a lot better once we get to Game Week 4 onward. We know how attacking he is and how good he can be for DEFCON. And Murillo, he's a little bit lower than Milenkovic on this ranking, and in my personal ranking, I'd say he's a little bit below as well. They barely did anything for DEFCON in Game Week 1, but by the by, I think we got enough data last season to suggest that at points they will. But for me, with Murillo, he just doesn't get the attacking returns that Milenkovic does, and that kind of makes me think he's not quite as good. But that's just my opinion. Let me know what you think in the comments. Okay, midfielders then, and we got a joint top two for Game Week 2. So Salah and Saka both have 7.3 expected points. Saka leads at home for him. Salah, Newcastle away. So I think there's a bit of a disparity there in terms of quality of fixtures, isn't there? Salah has got the worst fixture and Saka's got the better one. It's really hard to say those names together. Palmer, West Ham away. West Ham looked terrible, but Palmer didn't look very good either in their game against Crystal Palace. So jury's out on how we get on that one. Bruno Fernandes against Fulham. He's playing deeper for Man United in this game that I'm watching at the moment. But I think he could do okay against Fulham. I just think he's solid, isn't he? He's someone that's going to crop up with DEFCONs here and there. He's going to get assists, especially with how well the front three are playing in this game at the moment. I think there's no doubt about it. They're going to score some goals and he's going to assist them. Semenyo, really good game against Liverpool, obviously scoring the brace, so that's undeniable. And I think won't be long if he keeps playing like this and Rodgers keeps dropping blanks. It won't be long before a lot of players swap to him, I think. 7 million for the kind of returns he's going to get you. And now they've got that Liverpool game out of the way, I think the Bournemouth fixture's turning. He's going to be a really good option. Just Odegaard, he's good, but I'm just not sure. If you're picking an Arsenal player, I think you'd want to save your spot for someone like Saka, Gyökeres and Gabriel. I just don't see why you'd go for Odegaard. Over the next 5 weeks, we've actually got cheap midfielders up first. So Tavernier, who achieved defensive contribution points in their game against Liverpool, is top. 4.7 for him against Wolves. Reinders, who I've spoken about already, but he looked absolutely fantastic against Wolves. I think he's such a good option at 5.5 million. At the time I put these graphics together, he was 5.5 million. His price is expected to change today, so that might go up. People suggesting who is better out of him and Elliot Anderson. I'll be honest, I think as the season goes on, the two will level out. I really do. Anderson had a good game, close to DEFCON, got an assist against Brentford, so I think he's going to be decent. Dingra looked good as well at 5.5 million. We haven't seen Dewsbury Hall play yet for Everton, but we'll see how he gets on against Leeds. Zubimendi, I think he's just going to rack up the defensive contribution points, not do too much more, to be honest. Watching him in this game against Man United, he's sitting deep and playing that sort of deep lying midfielder position. I'm not sure. I'd be surprised if he crops up with many attacking returns. Then Hannibal, interestingly, for Burnley. I'm not sure I'd go for him, though. Over the next 5 game weeks, then, well, Salah's the number 1 midfielder. In second, oh, my phone just fell over then. Palmer is second. Saka is third. Fernandes 4th. Verts 5th. And Gakpo is 6th. I don't think anyone's too surprised. For me, in terms of like a midfielder pecking order, you know, you can't pick all of these in your team because you wouldn't be able to afford it. But I think in terms of how I'd rank the midfielders in the game, I'd go for something like this. But if Palmer continues to disappear in games like he has been, I'd be surprised to see him in my team for much longer, despite his 63% ownership. Forwards then, and Haaland is top. Tottenham at home is his fixture. He's on 7 expected points. I got to say, I think he is a genuine captaincy alternative to Salah this week. I think those that have gone Haaland and Salah, the strength of doing that will show in game week 2 because you have the ability to captain Haaland. And I got to say, I think I really would consider it against Tottenham. I think Newcastle away is a tough old place to go at St James's Park, and it could be difficult for Salah, although it's Salah, isn't it, at the end of the day. Isak, he's up here. Will he ever play for Newcastle again? No one knows. I don't think you can pick him. I think this is assuming that he does start, but he could have a good game if he does play that one against Liverpool. And I don't have a feeling that Liverpool are going to buy him anymore. I really don't think he's going to go to Liverpool. I think they'll see that performance from Ekitike and think, do we really need to spend another 100 million on a striker? For me, the priority of Liverpool should be signing a defender or a defensive midfielder to cover for Gravenberch. That's what I'd do. Gyökeres, at the time of this game, he hasn't scored yet, but I think it's only a matter of time before he gets some goals for Arsenal. He's undeniably a good striker. He's got experience in English football. I think he's going to score some goals. The interesting thing will be to see who takes penalties for Arsenal, because I think it's close between who is the best Arsenal asset between Gyökeres and Saka. And for me, the thing that would swing it is who takes penalties. Watkins, an unfortunate blank against Newcastle, although at the moment Gyökeres is blanking against Man United as well. Mateta, he had his chances, couple of chances against Chelsea, got booked unfortunately. I think he's going to just be a solid 7.5 million option, as will Evanilson. I think now the Liverpool game's out of the way, Evanilson's going to crop up with some goals. One player who's not on here that we need to talk about, Chris Wood. Scored a brace against Brentford. Everyone pretty much ruling him out, probably including myself, to be fair. I always thought he's an option, and he did spend some time in my team, but I just couldn't go near him with the form that Forest were in during pre-season, but he's obviously proved me wrong. Cheap forwards. So we've got Evanilson top. I've just done 7 million and below, basically. Raul Jimenez in second. Fleming of Burnley in third. Beto, Thiago, and Strand Larsen. Obviously, Thiago starting for Brentford against Nottingham Forest. Beto, we'll see what happens with him against Leeds, I guess. And Strand Larsen, although Wolves looks really poor against Man City, I still think he's probably the best cheap striker in the game going forward. He's probably going to take penalties, and he had his chances, even though they got absolutely thrashed by Man City 4-0. He had some chances in that game. Over the next 5 weeks, well, Haaland is the top forward. If he plays, Isak is second, Watkins third, Mateta fourth, Chris Wood, interestingly, is fifth, and Ekitike is sixth. So that concludes all of the expected points data we've got. Clean sheet odds then. I've taken this from Elevenify and I talked through it in the last video as well. I tend to pick out teams that have 30% or above clean sheet odds as to defenders I'd want to pick, buy or kind of start. So looking at Game Week 2, this is courtesy of Elevenify, by the way. I'll leave a link in the description. Arsenal 54%, Man City and Chelsea both are above 30 on 31, Crystal Palace on 34, Bournemouth on 35, and Burnley against Sunderland on 35 as well. And those are your top teams for clean sheet odds. And I think even though it's from a different source of data, Elevenify versus Fantasy Football Hub, I think the two are kind of coherent with how they've scored the top defenders. And then finally, I just wanted to go through top expected points according to Fantasy Football Hub, regardless of position. And I genuinely think the captaincy is a little bit torn. Saka, Salah and Haaland are all genuine captaincy options. And if I had all three, even though Saka and Salah are joint 7.3, I think I'd really consider Haaland. I really would consider captaining Haaland if I had him this week. He outperformed Salah in terms of goals. I think he could be a good option. Palmer, Isak and Gyökeres up there as well. But I think the big three are still the ones I'd consider captaining. And to be honest, I think Saka is only the best captain for Arsenal if he's still proven to be taking penalties. I have a feeling that Gyökeres might be taking them now. So for me, the captaincy is probably between Salah and Haaland. And if I had both, why would you not captain Haaland if you had both? You spent 14 million on a player, and if he has a better fixture than Salah, which I think Spurs is compared to Newcastle, why would you not captain him? All right, well, that's the end of the video. I felt like I went on a little bit longer than my other ones, but there's plenty to talk about, isn't there, in terms of these players and ones you might want to buy? Just trying to think if there's anything else. No, I don't think there is. If you enjoyed it, please leave me a like rating. Let me know in the comments if there's any players that weren't spoken about in this video that you'd consider buying. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to the Golden Goal channel. Should be just here on your screen. And yeah, that just leaves me to say thank you very much for watching. I'll catch you in my next video.